Hey everyone, I'm Marvin. As a leader in the classroom, it is your job to instill confidence in your students. Now, I know this may seem like a tall task. It doesn't necessarily relate to the content, but in the 21st century, that's one of the jobs of the teacher. They have to lead their students and infuse confidence within them. Now, when students are confident, they are engaged. When students are confident, their self-efficacy is high. And when that self-efficacy is high, students get on a winning streak. And when students are on that winning streak, they like the feeling that comes with that winning streak. And that encourages them to continue giving effort and stay engaged in what's going on in the classroom. And so this is one of the many jobs of the teacher, but it's very important. And so one of the ways that we're going to talk about in which you infuse confidence in the room is by using data. Now, your job is to make sure students get out of that mindset that success is a smooth, straight, traveled road, because we know that it is not. It is filled with many highs and many lows, and your job is to help students navigate that road that's filled with those highs and lows and those obstacles, and make sure that you keep them confidently focused on the future. Now, many leaders accomplish this by using visuals, telling stories, and in this case, what we're doing is we're using a mixture of both by infusing some data into that conversation as well. And I'm reminded of a quote from a great thinker. He said, "You paralyze resistance with persistence." Paralyze resistance with persistence. Now, oftentimes students, when they meet up with resistance, that is the end. Like, they don't want to go any further. The students will end up making comments like, "Oh, I've never been good at social studies, so there's that. Don't even have to try. You can't go any higher than that." And so students, they start to believe these negative things about themselves, and they start to place limits on themselves just because they meet with resistance. Now, one of the ways you can help combat this, if you're looking for something to do, is you can show your students a video that I did over on the Vision Chasers YouTube channel when I talked about how resistance makes you stronger. And if you want to check that video out, just go ahead and click the link that you see right there. But however you choose to do it, you've got to send a message to your students that there is a right way to respond to resistance, and then there's a wrong way to respond to resistance. And it's important to keep in mind when we talk about filling your students with confidence, this is not a single momentary instance. You've got to continue to have these conversations. You've got to continue to innovate how you're going to fill your students with confidence. And I equate it to like a gas tank in a car. Over time, after use, the tank is going to run low. And so it's going to be on you to find ways to fill your students with confidence. So you have an advantage in that there is data available to you. Data tells a story, and what you need to do is you need to bring the students into that story and help them to invest. And when students are invested, that means they're engaged. And the thing about it is there's some foundational things which I'm going to share with you, which you probably already know, but it's also imperative that you use some innovation as well in order to share this data with students. So, number one, you can display the data. There are a number of things you can do, colorful charts, lists, different things like that you can do in order to put on the wall so that the students they are able to see it, and you're constantly letting the students know what they need to do in order to change that data and to move in a positive direction. You can make a contest out of it. You use one of those thermometer deals so that so you can make a contest out of it so that the class can constantly monitor it. Second, you can have conversations with students. You can have public and private conversations with students. I really, when I was in the classroom, I enjoyed having private one-on-one conversations with my students. I kept a chair at my desk for that very purpose of having those coaching sessions with students and really digging deep into the data and sharing the data with them. And when you do this, when you start sharing data with students, either through visuals or having those conversations, it's very important that you are consistent Students are watching you to try to understand if you really mean what you say. Because if you start something and you're not consistent with it, then the students are going, that's going to be a strike against you. And the students are going to have that in the back of your mind that, sometimes you don't always mean what you say. And that means that maybe they don't always have to pay attention to you. So when we talk about going through the data, making it a habit of going through the data with the students, what you're doing is you're helping the students properly compose themselves when they meet with resistance. And your job as a leader is to help the students understand that failure in the past, present, or future, those are all opportunities to learn, to get better, and continue moving forward regardless of any resistance. And lastly, when we talk about instilling confidence within your students using the data, it's imperative that you use your planning time correctly and wisely, and you devote some of that planning time towards data analysis and really breaking that data down so that the students can easily see it, they can easily understand it, and in your private conversations with them, perhaps they're even making suggestions about what they need to do because they understand it, because you broke it down for them. And what this does when you break it down for them is it holds them accountable for actions, because then towards the end of that private conversation, you can hit them with some action steps. And perhaps it'll be a collaborative effort between the two of you coming up with action steps. Now, these are some of the statements that I like to make towards students when they're coming up with these action steps. So I like to use elements of love and logic when I'm giving feedback based on data analysis and reviewing data with the students. So I'll preface my feedback with things like this. Hey, Johnny, I think that XYZ. Or, Johnny, you may want to try ABC. Or, Johnny, what do you think would happen if ... So notice with those statements, with those action steps, I'm not telling the student what to do. I'm not bossing them around. I'm submitting to them some ideas based on the data that we just analyzed. And so it becomes clear to the student that, well, yeah, these are really good ideas that I should implement because I can see it for myself. So think about those things. Using that data. It's not very difficult. It's pretty elementary. It's just a matter of making it a habit, being consistent with it, and bringing the students into the story and allowing them to either create the action steps, or you're creating those action steps with them, and the students can clearly see the process that the steps are based on data. And just don't forget that it's a consistent thing. It's constant. Students are always going to come to the points where they're going to need you to fill them with confidence. So consider all of that, and until we meet again, please never ever forget that teachers are leaders.